Hi, and welcome to Michigan Matters. Dan Gilbert and Bedrock owns over 100 buildings, including many in downtown Detroit, which is why we're checking in with Jared Fleisher, president and incoming CEO of the company. We're going to hear the latest about Hudson's Detroit, Renaissance Center, and a whole lot more. Plus, ever wonder what it takes to stage a Broadway production? David Carroll, founder of the Nicely Theater Group, is here to talk about it and his production of the Tony-winning Fiddler on the Roof. He's joined by two local actors who are also involved. It's a show about Bedrock's impact in Detroit and celebrating community theater. There's lots to talk about. Let's get started.
From CBS Detroit, this is Michigan Matters with Carol Kane. Michigan Matters is brought to you in part by Henry Ford Health.
And we're so pleased to welcome Jared Fleisher, who is president of Bedrock, who is about to take over as CEO later this year. We've been talking about trying to do this forever. Thank you so much for coming in, and congratulations on the promotion.
Thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Well, there's so much that Bedrock is involved with, and you're involved with, and Dan has been, behind for so many years here, and you've had a front row seat to all of this. And I know you've been with the company, 15 years?
You got it.
You've had a front row seat on this. Describe in a couple words what this process of seeing what's transpired over 15 years has been like.
It's been a great privilege of my life to be part of this for the last 15 years. You go back to where we were in 2010, you had the Great Recession, you had the autos in bankruptcy, you had Detroit about to go through the largest municipal bankruptcy in history, and here we are 15 years later. From the New York Times to Time Magazine to Travel and Leisure, Detroit is a top 50 place to visit in the world. It's it's a great American story, and it's been a privilege to be part of it.
Yeah, boy, and literally, there's not a day or week go by where Bedrock's not announcing something or involved with something. Let's talk about some of the 100-plus buildings that Bedrock has, mostly in Detroit, some in Cleveland, too. We'll leave Cleveland alone for the purpose of our conversation.
It's not Ohio Matters.
No, we're going to beat them later in October, so don't worry about it. Anyway, Hudson's Detroit Building at the former Jail Hudson department store site, which has been coming to life here. You just had a gala on Friday where you unveiled the Detroit Building. How does it, from what you were originally proposed to how it's developing right now, how is it developing now? What do you see coming ahead here in the upcoming months?
Yeah, so Dan is a visionary who conceived of an extraordinary building, and I believe he exceeded even that vision. I live in downtown Detroit in the Brush Park area, and I walk to work every day. If there's good weather, I walk by it every day. And there's not a day that goes by when I don't look at it and say that is just a stunning building. And, it's our perspective from Dan to the whole company that, the built environment, think about what the Fleisher Building or the Guardian Building,
yeah.
For 100 years, these have defined Detroit. And now Hudson's is doing that as a beacon of hope, as a signal of Detroit's rise, and it'll be full of activity, full of energy, driving the city forward.
It also is a multi-use building. There's going to be office, retail, and a community spot where people get together for things, and there's going to be a separate tower as well in this whole thing here. Excuse me. General Motors is going to be moving its headquarters there, and there was talk of 2026, early 2026. Is that still the time frame? Is there any update on that?
I think General Motors will be in there beginning of next year in time for the auto show. You mentioned the retail on the ground floor. You had great tenants like Aloe, and Tacova is about to open. You've got the department, this extraordinary world-class event space. You have GM's headquarters there. The tower will have a 5-star edition hotel, condos, Nick Gilbert Way in the middle, of space for the public that'll be activated year-round. Truly something for everybody in the Hudson site.
Have you announced the hotel, which?
Yes, Edition, which is part of the Marriott family, 5-star hotel. We want the best for Detroit.
So, speaking of the best for Detroit, the Renaissance Center, which has been around for decades and decades, owned by General Motors, you're working with them now and trying to reinvent what it is. I think there was a talk of a $1.6 billion overhaul of it, maybe taking down some towers. To do so, you need monies from Lansing. On the heels of the budget, they kind of kicked the can down the road on the incentives and having monies available for these sorts of things here. Matt Hall, speaker, was on the show a couple of weeks ago talking a little bit about some of these things. Are you optimistic you're going to be able to secure the funds needed to do the overhaul that you and General Motors have been talking about?
I'm optimistic because it's the right answer. First of all, the program we're talking about, the Brownfield program, is a statewide program that's doing great things across the state, from Grand Rapids to Detroit. The overhaul of the Renaissance Center. We can't leave this, it can't become the Packard plant, this iconic building, the tallest building in the state sitting on our riverfront. It can't become the Packard plant. The overhaul is actually very special, going to reinvigorate the hotel, put housing there, great public space. And our vision over the next 10 to 12 years is to do to the whole riverfront what we've done to the rest of the downtown core for the last 10 to 12 years.
And taking down a couple towers again?
Taking down a couple of towers, but what I would focus people on is think about where downtown Detroit was 10 years ago and where it is now. Imagine if we do that to the riverfront. We can't do that with the Renaissance Center as a looming shadow casting darkness all over it. We have to fix the Renaissance Center so we can redevelop the whole
Something needs to be done. We know this.
Yes.
We're going to continue the conversation, talk a little bit about your background, which people may not know. Keep it right here. We're back with more Michigan Matters after this. Welcome back to Michigan Matters. We're talking with Jared Fleisher, who's president of Bedrock, soon to be CEO. And in fact, Kofi is retiring from the job later this year, and you're going to be stepping in there. So what's the difference? Well, how do you view your role from what you're doing as president to CEO? What's the difference?
Well, I think it's a natural evolution. Kofi has been phenomenal about making this a smooth transition as he retires for the second time. We got him out of retirement the first time. So we're hitting the ground running and can't wait to execute on a vision. The way we describe it, we're going to climb the top of Mount Everest. As far as we come, we're halfway up the mountain now, and then the next decade is about getting to the top.
You've actually been very visible in the community, sort of the face of Bedrock in many of these endeavors. How do you work with Dan? How closely do you guys work together on stuff?
Oh, I would say I get texts every 5 minutes.
He's texting right now. That's why
he's texting right now.
What are you saying?
I've never met anybody in my life like Dan, who's an absolute visionary, who leads with passion, and who's a real estate investor who's not about making a quick buck or even a buck, but about making an impact. He's a wonderful human being.
So, his impact in Detroit and Cleveland, it's massive in Cleveland as well, but from Detroit's perspective, he is Mr. Detroit. I mean, he has done so many different things here. In fact, Rocket just celebrated his 40th anniversary. I mean, he moved downtown in, I think, 2010, has over the 100 buildings here. So now, in your role now as CEO, what's the vision? You've got all these things up and going. What's the vision for Bedrock as you look ahead, say, over the next 5 or 10 years?
It's a great question. So let's go back to the beginning when it started, 2010. Well, let me go back a little bit before that, the Super Bowl, 2006, I think it was.
Oh, yeah.
They painted all the facades on Woodward because it was empty. All right, now Woodward is more retail than we've seen in 70 years. Bars, restaurants, Hudson side coming up. The Woodward core, absolutely vibrant. The vision for the next 5 to 10 years is to do that to the riverfront. We have an extraordinary asset, but pretty much no development on the riverfront. Just imagine where our city and state would be if this incredible asset, instead of being largely empty, had a redeveloped Renaissance Center and redevelopment all along the riverfront that brought millions of people, visitors from all over the world to our city every year, thousands of housing units. Imagine what our city would be. That's the vision.
Interesting. So as you look at things, when people are looking to come to Detroit, I sat with Dan a few weeks ago, wrote a story about him and his massive investment in healthcare in Detroit with Henry Ford and Michigan State doing incredible stuff on the healthcare front. He mentioned even then, people have an old view of Detroit till they get here. Then they get here and they want to be here. So much of these things, and there's momentum. It's not just for Bedrock, but the city itself. With the new mayor coming on board in January, things changing, there'll be changing of the guard up in Lansing come next year. How do you feel about the future, realizing being a political person and dealing with policy as you have in your career, you're going to be dealing with a new world order of leaders?
The reason this is such a great story is because the spark that Dan lit and fueled downtown enabled the entire city to move forward. And it took great leadership from Mike Duggan and the city council, but we went from bankruptcy and decline to growing for the first time as a city in 70 years, to $4.6 billion in property value increases across the city, to unemployment at record lows, to crime as low as it's been since violent crime since the 60s. What Dan sparked and fueled, combined with good leadership, has uplifted the entire city And that's why this is not just a story about downtown.
No.
This is a story of citywide transformation and a great American comeback story for 139 square miles.
And this is why we're getting so much national, international attention here. When I sat with Dan a few weeks ago, he talked about COSM. Is it COSM?
Oh, I'm so excited about COSM.
This is like for the Sphere, which is in Las Vegas,
Yes.
and it's being built here. So what's the ETA when that's going to be up and built? And describe in a nutshell what it is.
So we're hoping that it's open for the next football season, but you know, everybody knows the Sphere in Las Vegas. Imagine the Sphere in Las Vegas, but has exclusive relationships with the NFL and NBA and hockey, and you feel like you are the best seats in the house for the Super Bowl, but you're downtown Detroit. I mean, it would feel like they're sitting right here with us,
Yeah.
Carol, which is probably what we should do.
We should
Michigan
do. Let's do
Matters
Michigan Matters down
for
at
the
COSM.
inauguration.
All right, there we go. Let's do Michigan Matters down there. That sounds like a good game plan here. You have been with Dan and his company for 15 years, and in fact, this almost is like the Dan Gilbert show here, because our next segment talks about David Carroll, who was actually your boss.
He was.
And he was the director of miscellaneous.
He was the vice president of miscellaneous
And what
stuff.
was your title then?
I was a kid.
The kid in learning,
There
which
you go.
what have you learned from Dan as someone who has been dealing with policies, someone involved in business, someone who has a front row seat? What do you learn from him?
So there's a lot of business lessons you can learn. He built from nothing. Rocket, you know, the largest mortgage lender in the United States. There's a lot of lessons there. Probably the principal one is that culture matters. I think the more important lesson for America is Dan was incredibly successful in business, and what did he do? He gives back.
Yeah.
And he's concentrated his investment in his hometown and his other hometown in Cleveland, and through that engendered an extraordinary transformation. That's a lesson for everybody who's been successful. Give back in your community. There's no higher calling.
And taking hardships that he and his family obviously have endured, and making lemonade out of the lemons that's been thrown their way. So
I think even without that, you know, I think he's one of a kind. But to persevere through all that and not say, I'm just going to give up and go to a beach somewhere, but to double down on impact is a true testament to his character.
there we go. Well, and I appreciate you coming on, talking about it. We'll have you back after you get in that CEO role. We'll talk more
sounds
about it. Maybe
great.
we'll do it COSM, depending on when that opens next year,
That
too.
sounds great.
All right. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks. And keep it right here. We're back with more Michigan Matters after this. We're back and switching gears a bit as we talk about community theater with David Carroll, founder of the Nicely Theater Group, Alexa Carollo, sorry about that, a hospice nurse who is an actress, we'll talk about that, and Patrick Lane, CEO of Ignited Inc., who is an actor, also in it, and is related to Irene Wickett, in fact.
Irene Wickett. Shout out to my mother-in-law, Irene Wickett.
She worked in sales here at CBS, retired and all that a little while ago here. But thank you guys so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Well, David, let's start with you. We're talking about Dan Gilbert, and you are like long time pals with Dan Gilbert when he moved into your neighborhood when you were both, about 4 or 5 years old?
Yeah, about 4 years old.
Yeah, I think we're going to run a picture here of you. And in fact, you worked for Dan all these years and left, and he kind of suggested you get into the theater, right?
Yeah, I retired from the company and didn't have that much to do. I've always been a fan of theater, but I'd never been in any show. I don't have any talent, but Village Players in Birmingham was so kind as to let me be in their production of Guys and Dolls, which happens to be my favorite show.
Yeah.
I had a small role. Dan came to see it, and he texted me after and said, hey, that was great. I got an idea. You should open your own theater and just run your own theater, and that's be a perfect retirement thing to do. And I thought about it, and I had become friendly with one of the stars in our production, Mitch Master, who is now our director. And I talked to him about it. I said, hey, why don't I do the business end, you do the artistic end, what do you think? And the rest is history.
And so you're coming up now with your 7th production, and it is the Tony-winning Fiddler on the Roof, which is being held at the Berman Center for Performing Arts in West Bloomfield, right? This is your 7th.
Yes, our 7th show. When we started, it was right during the pandemic, so
Yeah.
we did some online shows. We did a show called Disenchanted, which is where we met Alexa. And then this will be our 7th live show in front of a live audience.
Wow. Okay, Fiddler on the Roof. In a nutshell, why did you pick that show?
Well, it's one thing. It's one of my favorites. Our director
Okay.
loves it, but it's just a great classic shows. I like to do just fun shows that people love with a lot of singing and dancing. And it's a timeless story, really. It's specifically, it's about 1905 pre-revolutionary Russia, a small Jewish village, and a husband and wife, Tevye and Golda, is played by Patrick and
The
Alexa.
stars right here. We're going
Stars
to
here.
talk to you about them.
Yeah, and the people in the town, they're very into their traditions, including the idea that children don't decide who to marry. They have matchmakers, and they have 5 daughters, and they see things differently. So I like it because it's a timeless story of tradition versus modernity, and how much does tradition bend.
Lessons to be learned still today here as we go
Yes.
through this. Well, Alexa, you play Golda, who plays the wife and the co-star of this production here. And what is it about this role? You're working as, we'll talk about being an actress at night and working as a hospice nurse, but what is it about the role here that interested you?
Well, being a mother, Golda is also a mother. She has 5, I have 2. And it's about kind of finding that balance between what you want for your children as a mother, but what they want. So, something that as parents we struggle with. I see a little bit of her in me, where you want a certain thing for your kids, but they're like, I don't want that. I'd rather be over here. And you kind of got to be like, do I want them to be happy, or do I want what I think is right?
Oh, and Patrick, thank you, by the way, for flying all night. Were you coming from L.A. or Red Eye to be here? I
Hosted a conference yesterday.
appreciate. What conference?
It was the Cannabis Market Spotlight in California.
Oh, okay. We'll talk. Well, that's a whole nother talk show.
It
We'll leave that
is,
alone
yes.
about
It's
what's going on
interesting
here in
in
Michigan.
Michigan.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, you play the main character in this, Tevye.
I do.
Same question. What is about that role?
I'm a girl dad. I have 2 young daughters.
Hence, I'm
9
seeing
and
your
6,
Taylor Swift
my
bracelets
daddy
there.
bracelet, right? And you know what's interesting? It's similar to what Alexa said. I find that as my kids are getting bigger, I have to learn to let go, right? And that is the story of this show. It's the traditions, it's that push-pull, the tension between the past and the future, and how we support our children, but also hold on to them as long as we can.
Yeah, it's an age-old story. It doesn't matter how the decades go by. That story stays the same for any parent, as everybody knows here. Alexa, I mentioned you're a hospice nurse, and you also are a part-time actor. How do you juggle that? And you have little children.
I do have little children. So I like to say that I am a stay-at-home mom and a hospice nurse at the same time. So I work nights, and I am thankful that I work for a company like Accent Care that really knows that you're going to get better work out of an employee if you let them fill their soul too, especially in something like hospice. So usually I take care of my kids during the day. I go to rehearsal till 10 p.m. and then I start my on-call shift from about 10:30 at night till 8:30 in the morning.
Oh my God.
And then I get them back on the bus, and it's just like a circle.
Wow. We're talking nonstop here. Patrick, you also, again, you're CEO of the company. It's a major company. But you're working as an actor too.
Yes.
How do you juggle? You've got the little
my God,
kids.
how do you, right? I mean,
How
it's
do you
the
do it all?
age-old struggle. So I was a professional actor for about a decade in New York and traveling on tours and things like that. And when I moved back to Detroit, I ended up at a company called Benzinga, right?
Yeah.
And so I led sales and started their events division there for about a decade under Jason Raznick. And Jason, a couple of other Benzinga executives, and myself, we started this new company, Ignite It, just a month ago, right? So we're in this, we're all in, as they say, right? And we're having a great time so far.
So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break, talk a little bit about how you possibly have time to be, how long you've been, practicing, rehearsing, getting it all together here, because it opens up in about a week or so, right?
Yes.
Okay.
This coming Friday.
Okay. Keep it right here, and we're going to take a quick break and be back after this. And welcome to Action Matters. We're talking about local theater and 3 guests here who are very involved with Fiddler on the Roof, which is coming up here this coming Friday, and then that weekend, and then the following weekend as well. It will be at the Berman Center for Performing Arts in West Bloomfield. David, your company, the Nicely Theater Group, which you started a few years ago, you told me when you first started it, you were doing it because actors and people from this creative side doing this amazing work that helps our culture, helps the community, inspiring, weren't getting their due in terms of pay and other things here. Is that still the case?
Yes. One thing I learned right away was how hard these people work. And it's really hard work. Not only do actors have to learn their lines and dancing, but also blocking, which basically is where you're supposed to be standing and how you're supposed to be looking.
Yeah.
There's so much detail. It's so much hard work. And there's so much talent and guts to get on stage and put yourself out there. So they really deserve to get paid for the work they do. And also the behind-the-scenes people, the costumes and lighting and set design and props and director. There's so much work involved, so much talent. So.
Yeah, and Alexa, this is what so David's done, this is the 7th production. How many of those have you been in?
I did 1 virtual, and I've done all but 2 of his live productions. So I've been in 5 live and 1 virtual.
How difficult is this show in terms of your role compared to the others that you had?
I think this is the biggest role I've had with Nicely. So I would say that just the more blocking, more learning of lines, more time outside of rehearsal learning.
Oh my gosh! And you have actually worked in other places as an actor, right?
I have. I was fortunate enough to go to school for this, college and grad school. I've worked with Tony Award-winning actors, Bill Irwin and Judy Kaye and Betsy Wolfe, all these amazing people, right? And I've been very fortunate.
It seems to me that there's a lot of community theater here. Since you've been around different places around the country doing this, would you agree with that? Are there more community theater companies here than other places?
There absolutely are. Michigan seems to be this hotbed of theater activity, right? I read recently that this is one of the largest concentrations of theaters and community theaters too in the nation.
Right. And there's very long-term companies. These are not like companies that just popped up here. These companies have been going for like
some of 100 years in some cases.
Yeah. Well, David, speaking of that, so you're doing Fiddler on the Roof right now. Are you looking at your next show? And how do you juggle whether to do, a comedy or something more serious or musical or whatever? How do you decide?
Well, we'll always do musicals because that's my favorite, and that's what we like to do, the singing and dancing. And I don't like to do anything too morose or sad. It always has to be an element of fun. But besides that, it's very difficult. It's probably the most difficult decision is what show to do. There's a lot of factors that go into it, including what my mother wants, what my daughter wants, my wife, actors, a lot of people in my ear, what we can get rights to. It's really the toughest decision. There's a lot of great shows out there, and picking the right one is challenging.
Speaking of your mom, shout out to Natalie. I know she'll be there. I think she's been in your audience too, right? As you're rehearsing right now?
Yes, we love seeing Natalie.
Yeah.
She told me she's the boss, really.
She is.
Yes.
And Natalie is a star. I know that. She could be on stage there as well here. But as you look, though, seriously, at shows coming up here, when you're making a decision, I imagine with copyrights and everything else, it's an extremely intense process to even say, is it available? Is this something I can do?
Yeah, you have to make sure that the show's available, and there's a couple of companies you work with that control that. So if a show is on tour, all national tour is pretty much not going to be available, so that's definitely one of the factors.
What's the one show you want to do that you haven't?
They haven't done yet?
Is there one, again, you're saying, okay, this may be ambitious, but...
well, there's West Side Story would probably be that show. Music Man as well. But West Side Story is more ambitious and challenging. The vocals, the dancing. But it would be good to challenge ourselves and make everybody step it up a notch. But I love West Side Story.
And of all the roles you've had, you've done many different things here. You're in the lead character role in this Fiddler on the Roof here. How does this compare to other roles that you've had? And I don't know if you've done other productions with David?
I have one other. I did Sky Masterson and Guys and Dolls last year, right? And it's so night and day different. The croonery type music in Guys and Dolls versus this incredibly well-known If I Were a Rich Man and Matchmaker and some of these other songs. I think it's wonderful. It's a big challenge.
If we had more time, I'd have you guys sing some of the songs. But you know what?
Next time.
Next time we'll do that. But I look forward to seeing you guys opening night. And no, it's going to be a big hit. It's probably already sold out, but we'll look forward to seeing you guys this Friday night. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And thanks you at home for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your day. And you know what? We're going to see you next Sunday, hopefully, for a little bit more Michigan Matters.